Hello, KFC SuperCoaches. Happy New Year to all of you out there. Welcome to the first KFC SuperCoach live TV show of 2023. We're, of course, at the business end of the BBL season. We're back to talk all-important final trades for the last two rounds. I've got some guests, as I always do here on the show. Tim Mitchell, very popular man in KFC SuperCoach circles. Tim, welcome.
Don't know about that, Phantom, but yeah, good to be on and good to have an actual proper super coach or KFC
Yes.
super coach who knows what he's doing with us as well, who I'm sure you'll introduce quite shortly. But yeah, my team took a bit of a hit in the most recent round after I finally got myself into the top 1,000 a couple of weeks ago. I've just been hovering sort of between about 1,500 overall and about 1,200 overall for much of the season. Just seem to be trading out guys at the wrong time, as unfortunately many of us do when you've got to sort of trade premiums every week just to be out to try and get players on the double in KFC SuperCoach BBL. The big story at the moment, though, Phantom, is the bloke that won it last year, Andrew, has got himself from 10th to 2nd overall. And I can't recall us ever having a back-to-back KFC SuperCoach champion. Like, he was 11th going into the last round last year and picked a couple of pods that won him the prize overall. So he's in a better position than he was last year at this time, and he's got a serious chance of winning 25k again, which is just remarkable, because I think we've had some winners do okay and back up the year after, but never go close to the sort of overall prize again, as Andrew's put himself in the mix for.
That's a huge effort. We've had him on the show earlier before the season started, so we'll track his progress the next 2 weeks. We might be talking to him as the winner shortly. But you mentioned the special guest. We do have one. Tim, you and I, the last couple of weeks, all we've been trying to do is track and chase down Dan Batten. That's our goal for the KFC SuperCoach season. Will Hogan, Herald Sun's AFL Chief of Staff, an all-round SuperCoach guru, not self-proclaimed like us. He's actually got the results to prove it. Will, you going all right in KFC SuperCoach BBL? Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you, boys. Thanks for having me on. Just saying pre-show, about 3 weeks too late, I think. I'm slowly sliding down this leaderboard. I was up to 12 about round 8, I think, and now I'm out to 85. Look, I can't complain. I think it is probably a peak for me in BBL SuperCoach, but I'm hoping the next 2 rounds I can muster up some decent scores to get back into maybe a top 50 or something like that. But no, happy to be on and share some insights.
Very impressive. We'll talk to you about those final moves you're going to make soon, and maybe look back at some of the big moves you've made throughout the summer so far. Dan Batten, we just saw him, Tim. He's gone again. Is that what's happening in the race? Are you going to catch him?
This is shocking. This is what he does. He pops up in the group chat when his team does well. He's very, very chirpy this morning. I thought I was going to catch him, Phantom. I got within about 18 points after last round, and I thought, oh, here we go. After I was almost 300 or 400 points behind him, and he's saying, oh, I'm gone. My season's over. And then lo and behold, he's got Josh Inglis. He's got Aaron Hardy. They scored 228 points between them. I don't have either of those guys, and Batten's got a nice little break on me again, unfortunately. So it's going to be tough, because I think a lot of teams are probably going to look pretty similar over the next couple of rounds, with the Heat and the Scorchers on the double next, and then Hobart with the double in the last round. So I might have to do that little KFC SuperCoach shifty move and watch Batten's team and see what trades he makes, and then maybe try and do a few trades at sort of, 4:30 start today. So maybe I'll trade at sort of 4:29 and try and catch him off guard.
I might watch your trades, Tim, and do the opposite. So and try and cancel out your moves. Although if I was copying your team and some of your moves this season, I reckon I might actually lose some points. So maybe better
together. Yeah, we'll just go down together, mate. We'll both end up outside the top 1,000 if you do that.
Very good. As you mentioned, the first game of round 12 is Friday afternoon over here in Adelaide. 4:30 Eastern is the first ball at Adelaide Oval. The Strikers take on the Scorchers, and then following that, later tonight, the Heat take on the Hurricanes up in Brisbane. Will, we'll start with you. You're the man of the show. And of course, if you're out there, let us know what you're thinking about your trades in the comments, and fire away some questions too. We'll try to get to them as the show goes on. But what are you thinking this week, Will? Big double game round, the penultimate round, but 2 teams play twice in round 12.
Yeah, it's fair to say I've had this round zeroed in, I reckon, about 4 rounds ago. I tried to, all my trades just probably have led up to this round to try and get a bit of a head start on other teams. Unfortunately, it's led me to slide back down in lieu of that. So I'm hoping I can somehow have a side that can get back up and have a few double game weekers. So I've got 9 already pre-trades. But with that comes a lack of actual trade out options to try and maneuver. Yeah. So I really have hamstrung myself. I did go heavy on the Scorchers, given they were going to have 2 in the back half of the year. So I'm in loop territory this week. I'm not going to make any trades pre any of the match starting, and hoping that if an Ashton Turner, who's been a little bit of a pod and helped me get up to that 12 about 5 rounds ago, if he can recapture that form, hopefully get a wicket with his bowling, which he struggled to, and get a hit. But he's one I'm going to loop in the bat, and I'm going to loop Travis Head, who was a must-have for me two rounds ago, and he's been a clear failure. I'm going to hold strong with him, and then my trades will just be loops if they do well. If not, I'll be preparing for next week's DGW. But I won't be trading in any other Scorchers or Heat. I've got 9. It's enough. I don't want any more, because I think it's just not going to be well for next round when you've got Scorchers, got the bye, and Heat. I don't think you want too many of them in a single game week. What do you think, fellas?
Yep. Very good. Yeah. Dan, what are you thinking? How's your Heat and Scorchers tally looking, and what are you thinking ahead of the start tonight?
I was just having a quick one for Will. Do you then, for those who do have, say, 8 or 9 doubles from Heat and Scorchers, do you then look to the week after that and go Hurricanes? Or we know that in the last double for the Hurricanes, a few really didn't come off. Some did. McDermott seems to be one of the biggest hit or miss KFC SuperCoach players this year. Did come off in last double. Will you then be looking to bring in maybe 3 Hurricanes this week if your loops all go to plan?
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking at, if my loops go to plan and I've got some trading options, I'll definitely try and maybe bring in a Kane, or you just go for the quality players that I don't have. So whether that is a Daniel Sams, I know he didn't fire last night, but he is a proven wicket taker. It does feel like this year there's, towards the back end of the year, there's less obvious single game weekers in a all rounder role, which is usually what I try and target. So I think you've just got to either take a punt on a single game wicket taker or a run scorer, which I don't like to do. So I think I'll probably try and end up with probably 6 Canes next week. Who they are, I don't know. Interesting at the start, you said that Andrew Diabolical had those pods last year to get to, what was it, 10-1. It baffles me how you could probably do that this week and next week, because it just, as Tim said, teams are going to be so similar. So trying to find those point of differences is hard, and then you don't want to go too far the other way, because then you'll go backwards if you don't have the players you need. So I really, it's going to be a jigsaw how my team looks between today and when those 2 games tonight finish.
Hulk, you reckon there's no all-rounders? Have you not been watching the Chief? The Chief's averaging about 80 since Andre Russell. He's the man. He went mystic last night again.
My issue is his role. It's a little bit annoying, the Chief, but he's been a good pick so far this year. They've just got to bat him at 4, don't they?
Yeah.
Mark Wilson. So yeah.
Yeah, but on my... Oh, sorry, Phantom, you go.
I'll just quickly throw to Tim Mitchell a little bit of concern about the weather up in Brisbane tonight for that second game of round 12. Should we be worried? What's the report, and is it gonna change your thinking with what you're gonna do, Tim?
Definitely got to be factored in, and it's a tricky one as well, isn't it, Phantom? Because we've got to probably commit to some trades earlier today with the first game at 4:30, and then maybe leave 1 or 2 up our sleeve for Brisbane Heat. I just checking the rain radar now, so that's as of sort of 1:15 p.m. Melbourne time if you're watching this back, and there's a little bit of rain sort of hovering around the Coolangatta sort of area, a bit lower than Brisbane, but reasonably clear. And a lot of the rain that was predicted to come today was meant to hit Brisbane by about sort of 3-4 o'clock and then clear up in the evening. So fingers crossed that is the case. And yeah, the BBL game doesn't get affected tonight, because that would unfortunately sort of hamstring a lot of guys like Will that have done the right thing and sort of planned ahead and loaded their team with all these players from the Heat in particular, and then find themselves in a tricky position as well. But the other thing that we've got to be on watch for, DB, too, and I know Tyrone's pointed out in their comments, is that we probably think now that the top two set with the Perth Scorchers and the Sydney Sixers locked into those spots, that there's a good chance that the Scorchers might do what the Sixers have already done this season and start to manage their quicks. They've got Lance Morris, Andrew Ty, they've got Jai Richardson, who's not playing at the moment, Jason Berendorf, they've got David Payne, the Englishman that they brought in as well. And then they've also got Peter Hertzoglu, who's been in and out of the team, obviously a spinner, but they sometimes go for that second spin option. So they've got Matthew Kelly, I didn't even mention either. So they've got that many quicks in their bowling arsenal that you'd have to think at some point that Andrew Ty, who hasn't rested, is probably going to get a rest, and he's really popular. Will that be today? It'd be disastrous if it was the second game of the double game week and we're all sort of stuck with a one-game score, as we saw with Sean Abbott. But there's those little question marks hovering around both the Heat and the Scorchers heading into this round 12 double game week.
Yeah,
that's right.
Sorry, Dan.
And Ty in particular, sorry to cut you off, fans, and as you said, hasn't had the rest. I thought it might have been a possibility for the double game round. It just happened that he might get rested in one of the two, but he hasn't. And obviously, he's the leading wicket taker at the moment in the tournament. I'm one without Berendorf at the moment, and I'll be watching those team jets closely for the first game. I think if he's in, you probably got to go in, because regardless, he could score a 70 or a 90, as he has done in most games throughout the season. But yeah, it's certainly worth factoring in, and I guess it does give a little bit more onus on potentially bringing in a player that's not from the Heat or the Scorchers this week, and especially if you want to go a little bit more potty, then yeah, maybe a guy like a Will Sutherland, who did face a few more deliveries than he usually has in the BBL last night, and who knows, it could finally answer all those calls from Mark Waller and others to move him up the order potentially.
He was just to jump in, Phantom. Will Sutherland after round 3 was 46k. He's now 184k with a break even in the 30s. So he might reach 200,000 by the end of the BBL, which is just crazy. We've been waiting for summers for him to sort of finally arrive as this KFC SuperCoach cash cow, and it's well and truly happened after Andre Russell left. So it's been great to see. But like Will was talking before about how you find yourself a point of difference is actually going to come off. And one that paid off for me a couple of rounds ago was a disaster in round 11. But in round 10, Josh Inglis went cheaply, and I didn't have him at that stage. I think I traded him out maybe 2 or 3 rounds before that. And what do you think of, if you're not a Josh Inglis owner at the moment, of maybe going with Cam Bancroft as your wicketkeeper instead, and hoping that he blasts off, especially with Adelaide, where the Scorchers playing, having been such a good ground for batters in BBL 12.
Yeah, I like it. It's with only 2 rounds to go. There's still time to make up that ground, but you do need to think a little bit differently. So, like I said, he's not only just a pod in his own right. He's that sort of you're sort of fading Josh Inglis at the same time. So, I don't mind it when you're on the Scorchers as well. We mentioned Lance Morris before. He's only in 12.9% of the top 5% of KFC SuperCoach teams. You're at the top. He's taken 2 for 21 in each of his past 2 games. And you look at that percentage compared to an Andrew Ty, we just mentioned, 89.5% of the top 5% of KFC SuperCoaches own him. So you need to look KFC SuperCoach Plus. If you do have that, go through the numbers. You can also check out our article, which is online now across all the News Corp masthead sites. On the Heat, a couple of pods as well. Usman Khawaja is only in 28% of the top 5% of KFC SuperCoach teams. He's now available for 38%, 38k less than his starting price, I should say, following that sort of another failure in round 11. Hasn't really set the BBL light since returning, but we know what he can do. Matt Renshaw as well, very cheap after that brilliant knock the other night. He's also in about 31% of teams. That's probably going to skyrocket, you would have thought, ahead of the double, but a couple of names to think a little bit differently when you're planning your trades and trying to make that last jump.
What do we reckon about James Bazley? Because he's been so good apart from the last double. So the only stinker that he had was when he scored 40 over 2 games. I think I had him vice captain for the last Brisbane Heat double back in round 3. And we whinged about that, didn't we, DB, for a few days? But he scored 8. He scored 8 in the first game, and then I think I had to skip Rashid Khan, who was a disaster later on in that anyway, because you couldn't take 8 points. But apart from that, I think he's averaging over 60. He's been really consistent, and the last couple of games he looks like he's sort of got his rollback, bowling 4 overs, and Brisbane Heat's batting's been pretty disastrous, as it has been for Summers. Like, he gets a hit at number 7 in most games now. He's taken that spot back from Michael Nisa. You reckon he's a must, Hulk, or is he one that you could potentially get away with fading?
No, I think it's too risky trying to fade James Bazley, especially hearing the way Usman Khawaja has spoken about him and how much he likes him and has played with him in the one-day format. It just gave a lot of security, given Uzi's now the skipper. I think he's going to throw him the ball. And as you say, he's a fair chance of coming on and getting 20 or so with the bat. We saw it the other night. He didn't probably have the balls, but he did hit a big bomb, and I think the potential's there. So you don't really want to risk someone that can give you 4 scoring options across the 2 matches. I think it's too risky. I do like the Usman pick, as you mentioned, Phantom. I think that could be quite a good pod, maybe if you wanted to avoid even a Renshaw, given his ownership will skyrocket. I wish I had Renshaw. I don't have him. I'm going to have to death ride him this weekend.
That's a big call, but you got to make those big calls where you are. Dan, Aaron Hardy, he said he's ready to go with the ball again. Just hasn't been needed in the last couple of matches. In his past 5 innings, he's hit 224 of 156 balls. He's only been dismissed twice. Is he going to bowl, and is he one we definitely need to get in?
I don't know. I mean, Will even mentioned Ashton Turner before. He seems to be their 6th bowling option at the moment. I mean, I think was it Agar that's is he out this week or one of the weeks? I thought I saw that somewhere, but maybe not. So, I mean, it's a chance, but I think I'm probably going to VC him anyway, even just with the runs he can get, and because he's playing in the first game as well. It's not. And you've got the 2 opportunities for him to bat at number 3. I think he probably has the most upside of any of those Scorchers players. And we know that Ty and Berendorf could be a risk, a chance of a rest potentially. Another pod I'm going to throw up, I brought him in last week and it didn't quite pay off for me. If you're looking at a Scorchers batter, Steve Eskenazi had 2 scores of 81 and 91 in round 9 and round 10. Has had 2 misses as well, scored a 11 and 0 against Hobart. Still only 120k. He's opening the batting for the Scorchers and has picked up some fielding points on the way. Only has 3% ownership overall. Is that someone that you consider, Tim, considering he's definitely getting 2 bats this round and he's playing up at Adelaide Oval?
Can we just say, when you say it didn't come off, you trade him in, he scored 0. And you still scored 100. You still scored 100 points more than me, which was a bit of a blow in the chase to try and run your team down. But yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's got to be that time of year, doesn't it? Especially if you're sort of chasing a jump in the rankings. I know there'll be people out there that are listening that are more concerned with winning their leagues and just want to load up on sort of some of the more popular players, even to sort of cancel someone out. Like, say you didn't have Aaron Hardy in your team and you're worried about him going big and he might be the difference in a league matchup this week. He's the sort of player that you could trade in just to sort of cancel out that matchup in a league game. But yeah, Eskenazi's one you look at. I still think Bancroft, like he had a good innings a couple of games ago. He was in really good form coming into the BBL too, so I don't mind him. And yeah, there's obvious sort of risk with the Scorchers bowlers, as we've already touched on. So going down that track of picking one of their batters might be the way to go, or it might just be about being willing to fade, which for those that sort of listening and don't know that term, just leaving out Aaron Hardy, leaving out Josh Inglis and hoping that this sort of hot form that those 2 have been on doesn't continue into round 12 and that might give you a leg up if they do happen to fail.
Tim, what are your Canes stocks like for round 13? Geordie Barr here asked a question about Patrick Dooley. I think he's been named
he has,
but hurt himself the other night. You were planning on getting him ahead of that round 13 double.
Yeah, definitely. So he's one that I was looking at because my third trade this week might end up being used on a Hurricane just to make sure I've got enough for the last double game week. But the latest, I saw Jeff Vaughan, the coach of the Hurricanes, quoted yesterday saying that he was reasonably confident that Dooley would get up, but then we saw him. I think he got himself injured in the warm-up a couple of games ago, didn't he, and didn't end up playing. So we'll just have to wait and see on sort of the final team sheet tonight as to what way that goes. At least you've got sort of the option of seeing the teams because they're playing in the Brisbane Heat. So if you were keen on going early on Dooley, at the moment I've got Nathan Ellis, who's been in really good form in the last 2 or 3 games. He's sitting on my bench, and then Fahim the Dream Ashraf is also still in my team from the double as well. And he's had a couple of decent games, but he's also had a couple of absolute stinkers. But I think I'll probably have to roll with him now because he's batting at 7. He's bowling 3 or 4 overs most games, and the role's there. The Canes just really need him to sort of show that quality that he hopefully has for them as an international that they've got in from Pakistan. So I'll go with those 2, and then it's just a matter if I go with sort of 5 or 6. And we mentioned Ben McDermott earlier. It looks like he's projected to be about 95K next round. Yeah. So I think for under 100K, it's going to be pretty hard to leave a guy out that every time Hobart has a double, he seems to go large. So I know he hasn't scored under 20 in any other round apart from sort of a couple against Adelaide this year. But, already sort of eyeing him off to come into one of my batting positions for that all-important last round.
Well, Hogs, let's spend a couple of minutes. We've got a top 100 coach here on the show. We better pick his brain. How did you get to where you were? You mentioned earlier you got up to number 12 overall in KFC SuperCoach BBL this summer. Take us through a couple of your good moves, and what wouldn't you do again next year that may have set you back a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Jordy. I think the number one tip in trying to get up the rank is definitely to plan as much as possible in terms of the bye rounds and the double game weekers. You've probably heard Diabolical talk about that before. You've just got to see how many you can fit in throughout the whole season and then work backwards from there in terms of trades and boosts. So that's probably what I did early on, was to meticulously see how many I could fit in and then sort of work around the single game weekers from there. So it ends up in a strategy of double game weekers and then single game weekers from there. And the single game weekers, I like all rounders because they give you more options. They might not have a massive ceiling some weeks, but at least they'll give you a base score of a 50, which you can take. So early on, I was just huge on Shadab Khan, giving him his batting 4 and bowling 4 for the Canes. So as soon as I could get him in, I did, and I'd actually traded out Rashid Khan after round 1, and it probably paid off because I think a lot of coaches would have had him based on, and for good reason, because he was obviously been an exceptional SuperCoach player, but his batting probably wasn't up there, and the role wasn't as good as probably previous seasons, and maybe batters have started to sit on Rashid Khan a little bit more. So I think it's a lot of luck trying to get up. I do like to not take a player that will have high ownership that I think can sneak off early and get out. I do like that. Like a Josh Philippe is always a very high ownership pick. I don't mind fading on him because he could sneak off and you get an extensive advantage over the rest of the competition. In saying that, I think I have missed him before this season, and that one game where he had a worldie and scored about 90. So it is a case by case basis, but yeah, that's sort of where I went early on in terms of the nailing those double game weekers.
Yep,
just writing all that down, Phantom, to maybe get myself to the top 100 one day.
Yeah, and Alex got a question here. You go right, AFL SuperCoach. Alex asked, when is AFL SuperCoach opening up, Alex? Well, keep your eyes peeled over the next couple of days. We're revealing all the prices. If you're not a SuperCoach Plus subscriber and you're not using Team Picker, we haven't been using it since December, then you can check it on the website now with all the prices. The final 6 teams will be revealed tomorrow, and then maybe something else for you next week. So keep your eyes peeled. Alex, we've got a couple of rounds of the BBL to go. Wednesday, I think, is the final game. The 25th of January will crown a new KFC SuperCoach BBL champion. Michael Voss, long-time listener here of the show. That is correct. He says Usman Khawaja is definitely available for both heat games, as far as we know.
Don't know why they wouldn't be. Yeah, there's no test duties or anything, so nothing to suggest that. Boys, I've got to head off. I got Oz Open duties tonight, so I've got to go get ready for that. But good to jump on and chat some KFC SuperCoach. Hopefully we've given you out some good advice. And I think the two guys I'm definitely trading into my team this week, Josh Inglis, who for some reason I traded out about 4 weeks ago, and James Basley's going to come in as well. That third trade's still a bit up in the air, but I agree with you guys. I think Basley's a must again this week, but I just won't vice-captain him like I did last time. I might take with Perth playing first, take a bit of a flyer and try and go for a bit of a pod from this. Like, might even go with Inglis as my vice captain and hope he goes big again.
Jotting those notes down. Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Tim.
I'm just saying, you just watch. I won't do that now. I've said it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for everyone for tuning in, and stay tuned because I'm sure the boys have got plenty of other good advice coming up.
I think just for me, following on from what Tim, I think I don't have Aaron Hardy. I don't have Basley. And then I'll probably just bring in Renshaw as well. Go with the 3 ones. But the problem is, I think, as Will said, not so much we've got all those guys who don't know how to trade out. Dan Sams is one. Geordie Barr is mentioning here on the question: is there a risk to bench Dan Sams this week? I either need to bench him or Matt Short. He's obviously thinking about getting those double game guys on the field. Sometimes, especially when you're talking about Matt Short, who scored almost 400 more points than any other player in the competition this year. You just got to play him ahead of some of those double guys, I would have thought. But Dan Sams, when KFC SuperCoach lockout lifted last night, I checked this morning, he was the most traded out player along with Travis Head. So I think Dan Sams to Matt Renshaw was the most popular trade at some point too. Dan Batten, what do you think about Dan Sams? Do you like the idea of moving him on?
I think for the right player, yeah, especially if it is a double game. Like, I'm in the position now, so I had, I think, 7 doubles coming into this round. So I'm going to bring 2 in probably Nisa and Berendorf, popular options that I haven't had. And I'm sort of got to make a choice, really. Do I keep Sean Abbott or do I keep a guy like Will Sutherland? And obviously Will Sutherland's been on fire, but Abbott turned up last time against the Thunder, who he faces this week, and their batting has been diabolical at times, and you'd think that he's going to pick up 2 to 3 wickets in the Sydney Smash. So I'm thinking I might just go with keeping Abbott and trading out Sutherland. So I think with these double game rounds, you can't have everyone, and I think Short is definitely the way to go in terms of fielding. And we've seen Sams; he's pretty much been a non-event with the bat this year. Really struggled to find any runs, and I guess it was that sort of that that he had a couple of weeks ago. He can pull that off, but most of the time in the previous 3 rounds he'd scored 11 points all up. So I think it's not that much of a risk if you've got enough doubles there to trade Dan Sams this week.
Hogs, what do you reckon about here from Richie? You said you've got 9. He's looking at 10 double game round players plus Matt Short, 5 Scorchers, 5 Heat players. Too many?
Yeah, it does on the face value seem like too many. If you do the math, Scorchers will all have the bye next week, so none of them will be available for your last round. So that means you could 3 trades, maybe 4 will get you 1 with the bye, which means you probably have to then field at least 4 of those Heat players, which I don't really like as a single game week option. So depending on how many trades you have, I would be trying to maybe go around the 8 or 9 mark and then just shore yourself up for next week. That's why I'd be wary of trading like a Sams for a Berendorf, given, yes, you're going to get a double from Berendorf this week, but you might get Sams this week and next week, which is the equivalent of a double game week, potentially if Sams goes big. So I wouldn't be trading Daniel Sams out unless you had no other option and you definitely needed another double game weeker. It's just the balance of, you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yep, some good advice there. Tyrone commented just after that as well, makes a good point. Yeah, you're going to want those guys to go with your 4 or 5 Hobart players. Only one team on the double next week. You're not having 6 or 7 players from the same team. So you still need those guys who can score well on the single game. Daniel Brown asks here, well, I assume he's talking. We'll go with Matt Short.
Matt
Anyway, Matt Short, but it was maybe Steve Smith. 176 KFC SuperCoach points last week. He's 202k now in KFC SuperCoach BBL. If you've loaded up with double game week like you have, Will, is he in your thinking, or should he be in KFC SuperCoach's thinking as a single game player the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think if you've got a free hit on a trade, I think Steve Smith's a good option. But it's against my thinking. I feel like I've missed him last week, so I'm not touching him this week. It's very highly unlikely a player's going to go again. And if he does, good luck to him. But he could snick off for 2 and you've wasted a trade. I try not to chase points unless they're an all-rounder because they've got the multiple options. Sometimes you're just going to miss a player's golden run. And I'd be going Matt Short for sure because he's got those 2 options, which I like.
Yeah, definitely. Dan, Ethan says Field Webster or Dan Sams?
I reckon Webster at the moment. I know Sams has a huge ceiling, but Webster, as Will said, he can score in 3 different avenues. I mean, he's been scoring 20, 30 points just from fielding over the past few weeks, and usually comes on with the ball as well. As even entrusted with that final over against the Heat as well. So shows that they're willing to let him roll the arm over and batting at 4 as well, where he can get that strike rate bonus if he gets past 20. So I think with Sams' batting and Webster's fielding, I think that sort of points to holding Webster.
The only worry with Webster this week is whether Marcus Stoinis pushes him back to number 5. So I don't know. I don't think you can wait on the lineup for that. So that would be my only concern with Webster. He's been a frustrating player this year because he just hasn't had a consistent role. I've had him in when he hasn't bowled, and I've had him out when he has bowled. So, but he's definitely one to consider.
Yeah, very good. Some good advice there from our men here on the KFC SuperCoach BBL live show. Thank you for all your comments and for watching today. Before we go, we are going to look at the KFC SuperCoach Zinger of the Week, as we do on every show. We love our friends at KFC. I'm heading down to Adelaide Oval tonight. I'll probably pop by KFC on the way and get a box to go. The KFC Zinger of the Week. We've got a lot of questions. People were very focused on their teams with only 2 rounds to go. But I did notice that Geordie Barr, long-time listener, said, Timmy, you beautiful human. Said, Phantom, you lovely man, you. That was it. No Dan Batten. Nothing for Dan Batten. So we'll give it to Geordie Barr. It wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't say this week. So, Geordie, thanks for the nice Dan Batten zing. Love we coming for with that. So, again, thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week's show. We'll be back, I think, with one more show. We're going to catch up with the winner sometime over the next couple of weeks. Could it be Will Hogan? Could it be Andrew, who we spoke to last year, who won last summer? As Tim mentioned, I think sitting in second place or definitely in the top 5 with 2 rounds to go. So monumental effort. Will, thanks for joining us. Good luck to you and your charge towards the top 50.
No, thank you. And sources do tell me that Andrew might have a boost or 2 left. So just watch this space.
2 boosts. Dan, do you have any boosts left?
Potentially.
Dan, do you have any boosts left?
I don't have any boosts left. Care to elaborate on that, Phantom? I think you may have.
Well, you disappeared for 3 days in some valley over there in Victoria over the holiday
Beyond a
period.
valley, yeah.
And I had to do your team for you, keep an eye on it, make a few trades, and you left me with a few impossible scenarios that to make it work, I had to use the boost to just get some cash up. So I used your last boost.
You did, and that really helped in round 9 when I had about 3 players out and had a 0 in the end. So that worked out well. So even you couldn't bring me down, Phantom. I'm still ahead of you.
Yes, you are. No, very good. Thanks again, guys. If you're out there, we've got our trade guide, all the best options from round 12. You can check it out now, heraldsun.com.au, and across all the News Corp mastheads. And if you're a SuperCoach Plus subscriber, all the stats and intel you need to know. That latest subscriber exclusive has gone up on Friday morning. So check that out now. Get your team sorted. Enjoy the last couple of days of KFC SuperCoach BBL. We'll see you back here on KFC TV very soon.